Thank you. Oh, we're not started yet, so. Oh, I can read it. How are you? Busy. Yeah, I bet. How are you? Yeah. Cool.
Easy. How you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you should say that. Yeah. Yeah, they're not huge, but yeah. No. Well, the Olympics are on, so you can maybe sign up for a team.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is it. Yes, please. That's one little weeds.
Yeah, yeah. I used to have like Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's definitely right. Yeah. I guess, yeah, it's a
You don't want to go to that.
Yes.
Can folks online hear us through that speaker? That seems like, are you? Hey, Wendy, if you can hear us on the chat, or hear us over the speaker, you can put in the chat. We can hear you, Sarah.
Good.
Okay. All right, so I think we can go ahead and get started. People might trickle in, but we can go ahead and get rolling. If that works for everyone. Just down a little bit. The copy's not quite ready, and the food is like. All right, Cameron, you're queuing up the slides, right? Can you take us to the next one? All right, so we're gonna do the kind of the usual flow of the RAB. We're gonna do some introductions. We'll go through community updates. We have some housekeeping items at the beginning, so we need to adopt minutes. There's a forum. then, we did all those polls last time, so maybe we get some feedback on what those results were. And then we'll get into some fun stuff. Melinda, who's the project manager for Chernovsky, is going to do an overview of the field season, show you the breadth of that work and what was involved. There's 2 binders. There's one here. I'm not sure who the other one is. Oh, right in front of us. So we can pass those around. The front is kind of the standard RAB figure showing you the project sites, and then the second half is a lot of Chernovsky maps. So if you're interested, take a look at those. We'll do an update on the Summer Bay Home Depot Little South America project, and then at the end we'll do some wrap up stuff with setting the next date, action items, and then any open discussion. All right. Okay, so let's do some roll call for the RAB members. I'll take some notes as we go. Jim?
Present.
Patty? I think she's online. David? Not online. Kale? She on?
I'm here. I'm on the phone. Can you hear me?
Okay, great.
Are you the 75 number?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Taylor, is that loud enough? Can you guys hear this?
Thank you. Is Michael online by any chance? Okay. Ben? Oh, I have a typo on Elise's name. Hearing? Oh, okay. 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 Thank you. Today, did you get back on the sugar interview? No. Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people that be listening to just. There's a, you can dig a dial in.
But yeah. Yeah, could you replace that? Maybe you scroll back so you can take a picture of the login or the yeah.
Was that? I think that's the old slide deck that we had those pages on.
Oh, that's not the.
If you have that PDF still, you can pull that up.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing this one. And I can.
Yeah, 601-262-2433 is the dial-in by phone number. And then the phone conference ID number is 797-380-310. No, it's okay. I didn't know if that was helpful if people.
Should I still pull up the login info?
So Sarah said, for those of us on the phone, are you paused on introductions? Yes. Yeah, so we're just working on some technical difficulties. And then Natalie, thank you. She said that she's on the phone, but it's difficult to hear. And yes, we're working on the folks not able to access. So
Yeah, so here, if you're able to,
There's the phone number, that's 601-262-2433, and then that conference ID number.
yeah.
is this thing mobile? Can it move to another location? It's plugged into my computer.
And you can just put in the chat, Lisa, that we put it on.
We can hear some background noise now.
Oh, this is the. Oh.
We're hearing noise coming out of Cameron McLeod's.
I have the Apple phone here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We're gonna go to, let's see. Switch camera here.
All right. Give that a try.
Okay.
See what's
Oh, now they can hear your computer. Mine's muted. Oh, do you unmute me?
yeah, we gotta switch the source.
Right there.
Yep.
Settings,
It's definitely, yeah, yeah.
device. Is that a real? What is it?
Should be good. Picking it up for now.
Yeah.
That thing?
No, it's not good.
Okay, so there, I was getting an echo.
I'm still not muted, so that's probably the part.
It's okay. All right.
Okay.
Let's try this now. People in the online system hear me. I go ahead and close the door so we don't have the background noise.
Hi, Taylor. This is Sarah. I can hear you clearly now.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so we're doing community introductions. I'll pass it back over to Jim.
Okay, so, yeah, Jim Vaughn retired for the past 4 years. And I'm down here in 96, and was journalist most of the time here. So now I'm just retired.
Ellen Berry, just chronically civically involved, community co-chair. So, Samantha Lusk, I'm a journalist at KUCB.
Let's go to the back.
So, Larissa Syverson, Unalaska Corporation.
Mancha Lopez, Unalaska Corporation Environmental, operator, been here 45 years.
We really cannot.
Thanks. And then if y'all want to introduce yourselves, you can. We're just doing some community introductions.
Lifelong resident. Yama Olair, also born and raised here. Alex Robinson, I've been at the museum and just community member, I guess.
Summer Smith, and I work for OC. Denise Rankin, I'm a county member, president for the Unalaska Corporation, and much lifelong resident of Unalaska.
Sean O'Donnell, I'm the travel liaison for the Army Corps of Engineers Alaska District.
Josh Barsis, Alaska Buds Program Manager, and glad to see so many people here.
And I'm Lisa Geist. I am the acting branch chief for environmental and special programs. So both the technical support side and the project management side of sort of the group that Taylor and Josh work in.
Cameron McLeod, public affairs specialist with the Army Corps.
So thanks, guys. And then for the folks online, if y'all want to come off mute.
Oh, boy.
And I think they can turn themselves off, so they can come off mute and introduce themselves if they're comfortable with it.
Do you want me to read through them so they can go in order, or?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
So I'm just going to start at the top of the list. So the number that starts with 415730. If you want to unmute yourself or introduce yourself.
Maybe not.
Well, I don't know. I muted them. I don't know how to unmute
If
them.
you're on the phone, I think you have to dial star 67 or 60 something. Right.
Nice and user friendly, huh?
There they go.
Hi, this is Tiffany Angus with OCE.
Hey, Tiffany. Okay,
Thanks. All right.
Hi.
The number start.
go ahead.
And then the number starting in 785979. You might have to unmute yourself.
Can you go ahead and unmute them? No? Okay.
Then the number 907-748-1628, if you want to unmute
Hi.
yourself. Oh, sorry, there goes 785. Who is this, please?
Hi, my name's Carol Brunner.
Oh, hey,
Oh,
Kale.
Kale. Okay. Oh, sorry, I did write that down. Kale's Bruner is here. And then the number that starts 907-748-1628, if you want to unmute yourself. There they go.
This is Donna Van Flying with the Unalaska Corporation.
Oh, hey, Donna.
Hi.
Hi.
And then I see Brent Lusick. Is that how you say it?
You got it.
Look. Good.
Lusick. That's correct.
Lucic.
No, my name
Thanks.
is Brent Lucic. I'm with Stantec, environmental consultant, interested party.
Excellent. And next I have Karen Orvis.
Hi, this is Karen Orvis with Autna Engineering Services.
Okie doke. Then I have Jeremy Craner.
Hi, good evening. I'm the Fort Leonard project manager. I work at the Corps of Engineers with the Alaska District.
Wendy Hansen.
Good evening, everyone. I'm with the Army Corps of Engineers, and I'm the technical lead for Chernovsky Harbor.
Kathleen Eiler Galau.
Not bad. It's Eiler Gallo. And I'm with DEC.
Excellent.
Hey, Kathleen.
Then Lizzie Buckingham.
Hi, I'm Lizzie. I'm with DEC Contaminated Sites, INCSA Contaminated Lands.
Mike McMillan. You're muted.
Hey, hello. Mike McMillan. I work with FUDS and NALAMP. Happy to be here for the meeting.
Melinda Brunner.
Hi, this is Melinda Bruner with the Army Corps FUDS program. I'm the Chernovsky project manager.
Natalie Kale. Okay, she's still muted. So we can come back. And then Carrie Nelson.
Hi, Carrie Nelson. I am with the Army Corps Range Support Center. We support the Alaska District on some of their MMRP projects.
And Sarah Bernhardt.
Hello, I'm Sarah Bernhardt, Alaska DEC Anchorage office. I'm in the Contaminated Sites program, and I'm a project manager for Cape Winslow, Ugadaga, and Fort Leonard.
Great. Did I miss anyone on the phone?
Okay. Awesome.
Back to you, Taylor.
Well, thank you all for doing introductions and bearing with us for our technical difficulties. So does anyone have anything that they would like to announce for public comment? Last time we had some Stantec announcements, I believe. Is there anything else that folks would like to discuss? Yeah.
Denise Rankin from Unalaska Corporation, and just public comment that Latrine 1 and Summer Bay Humpy Cove are not being cleaned this year, even though it was announced at the last RAB that it would be.
Thank you.
Could that statement be repeated for those of us on the phone? I missed the last portion of her statement.
You want to repeat that, please?
Sure, Denise Rankin, president for the Unalaska Corporation, and it's our lands that are affected. And at the last RAB meeting, it was reported that cleanup was going to begin on our property from World War II contamination at Latrine 1 and Humpy Cove, and it is not being done this year.
Thank you very much.
Anyone have anything else? I know we want to discuss Latrine 1 and Summer Bay Humpy Cove, so we have some time at the end for that. But until then, is there anything else that we'd like to add? Looks like maybe someone sent something on chat.
Wendy's talking to Melinda about some issues, so she's going to help her.
Okay. I think we can move on to the next one. So information repository refresh. This is upcoming. We are going to try to do CD copies, but there aren't CD drives in the library. So I think we're going to stick with hard copies. But if anyone has feedback on ways that they want to view reports and the most consumable form of media for you guys, please let us know. There's this FUDS XDocs that people can get access to, but it requires going on to a portal and getting access, which is a barrier. So I want to make sure that it's as easy to get to as possible. We do have there's a project, the Approval War 2 Tank Farm has some GIS for site users. It's a publicly accessible thing, but again, it's in the disk. So if you have feedback, please let me know. Until then, I think the next RAB will bring some more hard copies and try to refresh the files that are there.
I think hard
Can we
copies.
provide feedback right now?
Sure.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so just trying to do some research on some properties, such properties. It is really hard to do that if you don't live on the island and have access to the hard copies in the library. Is there any effort for the core and the FUDS program to get all of that stuff that you have in a repository in an online database where people can access it?
Yeah, so that's the XDocs portal. And at the end of the slides, there'll be kind of a summary of things that are going on, and there's a link to the XDocs portal, I believe. So I can share that at that time, and then maybe Lisa or someone can put it in the chat. It looks like Lisa's working on that. So we can send a follow-up on access. And I think that's kind of the usual feedback we get is some people who aren't here in person for digital, and then Jim just offered up that hard copy is really nice. So I think having both available is great. Just with the awareness that sometimes it takes me a little while to get a hard copy down here. But I'll bring hard copies of anything that's new, and then we'll send as an action item for myself, going to send follow-up instructions on the XDocs access after this meeting. So probably next week by the time I get to that. And then Lisa put something in the chat, I believe.
Just so they could, if they couldn't hear you. Go ahead.
Will it have all of your FUD sites on in Unalaska on there? All of the all the documents you have?
Yeah, I believe it's for all Alaska sites. I think we grant it based on a state.
Yeah, so you can look at Chernovsky, MacNac.
Portland, or yeah.
And it will include all your studies and site reviews and everything.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
There's a hand raised by Sarah Bernhardt.
Yes,
Go ahead,
I
Sarah.
was just, yes, when you say XDocs, is that the, your Army Corps of Engineers online library website? Is that sort of your nickname for XDocs? No.
No, it's associated with the FUDS portal, and it's a tab within the FUDS portal, and it's just called XDocs. So it's a sort of formally used defense sites. There's different, like a training site we have access to. Then there's this XDocs that's a public version of our admin records.
It's like a Corps of Engineers FUDS program.
Yeah, but it's not our Alaska district website, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, because there is a link, and now I'm thinking about it, the link on the last slide, I think, is actually a link to our website with the meeting minutes for the RAB and not actually to the XDocs. So I'll send a follow-up email with the access info. Okay, I think we can move on to the next one. Great. Okay, so did anyone have any revisions or notes on the last set of minutes? This was for the May meeting. No? Okay. Great. And then scrolling through here. Second. We also have if you want to just go ahead and tap to the next one real fast. So these are both housekeeping items. So we made some revisions to the RAB operating procedures, so we can go through the motion to adopt these in just a moment. But we discussed these last meeting, and there were 2 revisions, 3 points that were discussed that we decided not to revise. So to summarize those, we wanted to keep the meetings quarterly. we didn't want to specify the day of the week. We wanted to keep it flexible. And then we don't want to revise the number of community chairs. So we still want to have 2 community co-chairs, a USACE chair. We did update to list Ellis and Elise as community co-chairs. And then for the other point, it's about the RAB members. And we're talking about how it says, like, if they miss folks, or if people miss a certain number of RAB meetings, they should be terminated as RAB members, but we wanted to change that to say shall, kind of based on situation. And then there was another proposal of, this would have to be a proposal this time. This will be a separate motion, but discussing the youth seat changing its term from 3 years to 1 year. That's a summary of all the things that we have on the list to adopt. But if we could go back 1 slide. If we want to adopt the minutes, we just need a motion to adopt. All right, Ellis makes a motion. Jim seconds. And we do have quorum, by the way. We have 4 attendees, so we do have quorum. With that, we can adopt the sorry. Kayla, can you hear us?
On the phone, any RAB members? We just asked about adoption of the RAB meeting minutes. If everyone is in favor, they could say aye or no.
This is Kale. I'm in favor.
Thank you.
All right, so we have adopted the RAB minutes from May. And then we can move on to the operating procedures. Does anyone have any discussion on?
Sure thing.
Okay.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Oh, I just let 2 more people in that were waiting. So, but they probably need to mute themselves, please.
Good idea. Yeah, yeah, you got Robinson.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the youth seat, we just have to revise the RAB procedures again. We just didn't want to kind of force a high schooler into a 3-year commitment. That seems like a lot, but yeah.
I mean, if someone wants to stay on, there could be more than 1 student or youth member.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And we can make that, if we want to adopt this for next time, we can make a revision to it that says may be a 1-year term with the option to renew if they would like to. So we can add in that language.
Or can with the next student.
Yeah, great idea. Make a note.
Let's see, do you encourage our youth to join?
Yeah, I agree. And while I'm taking a note, Ellis, do you want to give them an update on?
Yep, I reached out to the school superintendent about that. Sort of just gave them a summary of what we basically got kids involved. Basically said we could talk about it. Yeah,
Maybe go to one of your assemblies.
yeah. So I think that's the next thing. So I think the first thing is like reaching out to them, sort of figure out personally. I think they wanted flyers and posters, sort of like a summary of what's going to be. So I think the idea was to shop something in Taylor, at least coming months. To them, school's just starting, so hopefully we get someone interested in applying before the next map.
But that could be kids directly. Or assembly.
I would love to. If next time I can come down and coordinate it. Do you know when those happen? No. Okay.
It usually depends.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, maybe we can get that information from the superintendent and we can talk to him directly because that'd be great. It'd be a lot more interesting than a full paper blurb. So yeah, thank you. Okay, so for the RAB operating procedure revisions, if we're okay with the first 5, no changes, and then the 2 revisions, can we get a motion?
Make a motion to adopt the change of youth seat term 1 year.
This will actually be for the adding you as a RAB
Oh.
chair and then changing the language. Yeah.
Make a motion to adopt adding me as chair and changing the language for folks.
Great. Do we have a second? All right, Jim seconds. And then with Kale, do we have all in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
Kale?
All in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then I have an action item to change this language for the youth seat to put in a possibility to extend it past 1 year if there's interest. No term limits, yeah. All right, on to the next. Okay, so this is a quick summary. We just wanted to kind of show that we're following up on the pieces that were dangling from last time. So there were a couple of discussions that we had with Ellis about his various questions. Us RAB chairs discussed the advertising of the youth seat and the term of the seat. Forrest has been in touch with Sarah. Melinda sent out some maps. And then I'm not sure if David Holmes is on, but I think there was interest from Karen with APIA to get reports on Strawberry Hill. I heard someone was from Stantec, but I don't think it was David.
With somebody else, I don't remember who. Maybe.
Yeah, this is Brent Lusick. I'm not up to speed on what David's working on, so I unfortunately can't provide an update.
No problem. We'll just have it there, but we just wanted to check in. Okay, I think we can go to the next one. Okay, so we took several polls last time. It was really awesome getting feedback both from the virtual attendees, and then we had that poster up in the back where we had everyone mark it up. So we put all this together. I'm sorry, I'm talking to you a little bit. So one of the first questions we asked about was prioritizing the next AMACNAC projects. So I mentioned this before, but the prioritization takes into account community interest and priorities, kind of the imminent and substantial endangerment factor, and then funding and scheduling. But community interest is a priority. So from that, we got that Ballyhoo Spit and Margaret Bay Airport project were tied for first. So we just listed them as first and second. Obviously, they're priorities. And then Pyramid Valley, Port Levashef, then Mount Ballyhoo, and then Museum of the Aleutians.
So one quick comment. I know that there is any little like preliminary project for what's it, mussels, and clams I think they're doing out at these spit sites. So I think that just adds extra emphasis on that. I think that was the opening just after.
Okay. It's good to know. Yeah, and if at any point, that's a really good reminder, like if there's anything that changes, this is looking at several years ahead in the future. So if there's community interests that change, we can revise this. I think we'll check in on this at a yearly frequency, but if things like that come up and you know of a project that puts more of an emphasis on a certain area, just let us know. Okay, next one, we have a couple polls. So we were trying to figure out which properties we wanted to talk about. So MacNac was a big interest, then Leonard and Chernovsky, and then Cape Winslow and Ugadaga were down in 4th and 5th. We're talking about Chernovsky today and a MacNac. Leonard had some discussion last time, but really what we're trying to gauge is just interest for what these RADs should entail. We don't want to just come and talk for, I don't know, our own entertainment. We want to make sure it's the stuff that y'all want to hear about. So again, this could be revised, but let's put a lot of emphasis on those few projects, and I think that's a lot because they have active work going on, which makes a lot of sense. Next slide. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was a meeting here, and it was very interesting about Qawalangin, Jeremy Crater. And
Yes.
Why
Okay.
they would talk. So I enjoyed that. I thought it was very interesting too, how to use, thinking about using drones to do the surveys. And
Yeah.
signs.
Yeah. Jeremy's on the line. I don't know, Jeremy, if you want to say anything about that meeting that you had, but I know he reported that was really productive and a good turnout.
Yeah, it was
Jeremy,
a
did
few
you-
weeks ago. Yeah, sorry. It was a few weeks ago. I forget which day it was. We did an insight or an on-site meeting right in the library there, and we had our contractor PM come out and walk through some stuff. We had some cool photos and some information about the work that's going on out there. And we're just I guess, quick summary. We're working on a phase 3 this summer that's coming up in September, which will be some intrusive work. We've done kind of a phase 1, phase 2, so 2 different MOB and DMOBs, and then we'll do this third phase is the plan for the remedial investigation component of the project property. So yeah, it was a good meeting.
Thanks, Jeremy. And yeah, we've talked a lot about like trying to use everyone's time as wisely as possible. And this RAB has a lot of different properties, so there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about. But then the timelines sometimes of these projects where we need to have these public meetings don't necessarily align with the RAB. So we try to advertise them during this opportunity, more meeting with everyone, and let you know that whatever meeting may be coming up is an opportunity to go and engage. But that was a really good one. Okay, so then the last poll was what topics everyone wants to hear, project briefings and in-depth training of 3 Rs or a guest speaker for 3 Rs were tied for the top 2. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about the training request. We could definitely set something up in the coming months. And then third was an overview of the FUD's environmental process. So that'd be, you know, the kind of different phases of vocabulary and all the stuff that goes into it. And then there's a few others, like talking about projects and archaeology, things like that. And no one was really interested in having a step-by-step walkthrough of a report, which is fair enough. Okay, I think we're ready for the next one. Okay, so we're ahead of schedule, I think, by a decent amount. Oh, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Denise Rankin for the Unalaska Corporation again, and I'm just curious, now that you've had us do these polls, what are the next steps? We really want to get some action going of cleanup instead of constantly doing these polls.
Yeah, that's great. So what we did with the feedback most recently was we internally did a ranking, and Josh can speak to this more than I can because this goes a little bit beyond my pay grade. But internally for the projects, we took that feedback and we were starting to figure out which projects we could tackle next, looking at all the risk components that are associated with it. Josh, do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we, take into consideration risk of a project, risk of a particular site. We look at community input, and then a lot of it comes down to prioritization based on funding and staff. So, we address as many of them as we can at a time. And so we have a certain number of projects right now we're working on. And as we finish those up or new ones come up that we're able to work on within capacity, then we'll put those on our annual work plan build.
Well, can I ask a follow-up question then? And I'm just curious about this process. Seems like it should be able to be streamlined a little bit. As an example, we received, and it's a brand new funding, the EPA grant for INSA cleanup was just awarded last year, and we cleaned up the property this summer with our OC environmental crew. So the EPA was able to get funding, get us the funding. We went through the grant process, cleaned up the property, and sent out super sacks all this summer season. And for this being 80+ years of trying to get our lands cleaned up, it's very frustrating to hear again that we're just now gonna take this and review, and we've been giving information on what's our priorities.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be snappish at you, but I'm very, how is it one agency can do this, but the other one can't? And is it something that is a funding issue to where we need to start asking for more funding to go to the Corps? Or should we say, no, we'd rather, since the EPA worked out so much, let's get funding to the EPA to give back to these communities to clean up?
Yeah, thanks for that comment. I'm glad that you guys are able to find other funding resources to, prioritize projects that you're working on. I think that's excellent. The Corps does have a pretty rigorous process they work through. Most of our sites follow a CERCLA or CERCLA-like process, and it's it is a lot, and there's a lot of policy and regulation that we follow, and it does take time. So I understand that. A lot of times our projects take about 3 to 5 years to move through the investigation phase when we get to clean up. And so
that's the part that is frustrating to me, because we were able to investigate the building 551 contamination, which never should have been put on us as the INCSA landowner. Granted, it was considered an act of war, but it was still, in our opinion, floods related. So we were able to get this funding, clean it up. And that included doing the environmental. And on top of that, we found bunker C that was floods related that is now gone into and is probably going to keep contaminating the lands we just cleaned up.
There was a tank there we did at the summer that UC supposedly cleaned up, but it was coming out of there. And so you still have to go back and clean again. That's something UC said was empty and cleaned up. It wasn't. It was leaking into our project.
The bunker C in the ground. Yeah, no, we recognize that there's a substantial amount of product there, and as land use changes, for example, if you no longer want to use the building at building 551, and sorry, I don't mean to distract too much from it, then we have the ability to go back and do additional work.
Well, you'd have a 5-year to investigate the problem, and then at the end of the 5 years, if you change personnel or something, you have to go back to step 1. That's why it's taking it.
Well, I think it depends. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't speak so broadly. I was kind of referencing from the get-go of a project. For something like Building 551, we already have a lot of existing data. So provided the land use changes, it wouldn't take that long. It would depend on funding. And we have to, again, put that information on our work plan and talk to our headquarters and kind of plan for that. But it's certainly something that we can continue to talk about. And yeah, again, as land use changes.
A lot of land use changes became like, let's say Strawberry Hill. When I was a kid, people lived up there, so much we can't build on it because there's so much contamination on it. So as a shareholder of OC, we're losing revenue, for shareholders. See, my mom, she's on fixed income, so she gets money from her shares. Could be more if we were able to build on that property at Strawberry Hill, but it's so contaminated, you can't build on it. You can't clean it either without, we're not going to spend our money to clean it when, the Army don't go for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we want to clean up our own mess. And Strawberry Hill, I'm not so familiar with, but I know there have been some discussions about Strawberry Hill. That one we continue to look into.
There's a hand raised. I believe it's Natalie that had a comment from the online.
Yeah, thank you. This is Natalie Keel, and I actually don't know who is speaking, the gentleman, but I think what you just said is that you recognize that the extent of the contamination at Building 551, and there's a lot of existing data, and that the Corps wants it cleaned up. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, we recognize that there's still a lot of product in the ground under Building 551 and that utility corridor as well.
That's Josh Barsis, by the way.
Yeah, sorry, Josh Barsis, FUD's program manager.
Thank you. So what is FUD's doing to actually rectify the situation? And maybe I'm just not familiar. We got the work done OC, and OC got the grant through EPA. But what is FUD's doing to actually clean it up?
Right. So for that particular project, and I don't know, you know, the context of the RAB, whether we want to dive too much into it, but for that site, we have a record of decision or decision document already in place, and we completed the cleanup. So there was already a lot of work done, you know, and for instance, under building 551, there's just no feasible way to access that contamination while the building is still in place. So that kind of hits on the point of when land use changes, if there's no longer need for that building, if you want to build a new building, then we can talk more about, well, can we take that building down and go and do more excavation? My understanding is that we've already excavated the extent that we can without either taking down building 551 or running into the utility corridor. So that's a large problem for that particular site.
Except that it's now leaking into where the cleanup was happening under the EPA grant. So it's not just that the use of the building or the property is changing, the extent of the contamination and the movement of it is changing.
Yep. So we have that well documented. Sorry, take just a second. You know, we know where the contamination is and we know where it is in the monitoring wells. So I'm vaguely familiar with where that cleanup project was. And I believe yes. So I don't think that what you ran into is necessarily new. It's been there for quite some time. It's within the boundary of the extent of contamination, but it is unfortunate that you ran into it. We maybe should.
Question was, did you all provide that in a comment? And any of the photos or like the contamination that you ran into? We just started and finished the project this season.
Tiffany's got her hand up here too.
Yeah, okay.
So. Natalie, is there any other follow-up from you, or do you want to let Tiffany go?
Well, let me the question, but we can continue this, but it was just about when we were talking about these sites that were with the poll, and then there's all these factors that go into, are taken into account, but what is the timeline for actually, I know you said that now you take the results, you all get together, you look at the different factors, but what is a realistic timeline to actually have something like a deliverable? But I do want Tiffany to be able to add about building 551.
I think, and this is Lisa Geist, I think that's kind of a difficult question to put a specific timeline on. I mean, because as Josh said, we do have processes in terms of starting a project, getting a work plan, doing field work, getting a report. I mean, which piece of that do you put a time on? I don't know if you wanted to elaborate.
Well,
Said this is Denise, now I'm speaking as a community member and shareholder and tribal member. When you say it like that, I'm sorry, but it's been 82 years. We have had so many people die from cancer on this community and elsewhere. My grandpa had Parkinson's, my aunt had MS. Now I'm starting to have balance issues. Can't we get these places cleaned up soon? I mean, you have LSA on there now as a priority for cleanup when we couldn't even get latrine 1 cleaned up because of a darn sink or something. So I'm sorry. I'm trying not to get upset, and I'm speaking as a community member now, so I can't get in trouble for OC, I hope, but it's frustrating to me.
No, our project's taken a long time.
My grandpa was here during the war. He had to get evacuated, and now he's dead. So we've gone through a generation, almost 2, and it's still not cleaned up. Thank you.
Can I back off that for a second?
Can I give a little history lesson? This is why the Army Corps is here in Unalaska. In '97, I was on my second cancer scare. I was 36 years old. I knew 12 people who had cancer in this town. I listed their names, their type of cancer, what kind of treatment, whether they lived or died. And I sent it to the Department of Epidemiology, and every other name in the blue pages of the Yellow Pages book used to have blue pages, which is all government agencies. And I CC'd everybody that I could think, the Department of Law, Department of Justice, everybody. And that's so that nobody could say, well, I didn't get it or something like that. So everybody knew that it was sent to the Department of Epidemiology. And from there, they sent a questionnaire out. People, they hired people to go and do surveys of what kind of, to see if I was telling the truth. They did multiple communities in Alaska, including communities in Russia. And they skipped Unalaska. They didn't have nobody come here. So I raised this thing about that. They had somebody sent here. That was in 1997, 27 years ago. And they found the PCBs over at Delta Western and all of this stuff. They found the contamination, and that was 27 years ago. And that's what was upset about. You keep doing the studies, and then you keep doing another study and another study. But in the meantime, right now, I'm, you know, third time cancer. I don't want to do it again, right? I don't want to do it again. And I don't want to just leave.
I want to piggyback on what he said. Sorry, you know.
Oh, wait.
Like,
One more thing. I did a genetic study, not just the breast cancer gene, but the 27 panel and then the 60, the maximum 67 something panel genetic study. I have 0 genetic markers for cancer. None of any kind of cancer. And I have at least a dozen people in my family who've had cancer, and some have passed away because of it. Way too young.
we went up to, remember Bunker Hill? And people gave me a jacket, right? So cold. Then you walked through with us?
No, I didn't come last time.
No one else from here. Yeah.
Okay, well, we went up there, you know, and, look at a site cleanup and stuff, and you guys are hauling this tub, sink, like a historic piece. I mean, honestly, I live here. I walk my dogs on all these mountains. I'm waiting for them to get impaled on a piece of old Quonset. I mean, this is like your guys' mess. You guys clean this up. That thing, I'm sorry, it's not a piece of historic anything. It's garbage. And you guys are paying some other dude from Kodiak, wherever he's at, come in to look at it, take photos of it. You know, you guys are talking about some guy, some dog's guy or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's just garbage. It's a mess. It needs to be cleaned up. I mean, these hills have so much metal debris. Now that debris gets so rusted, it like blows away and away into pieces. You know, and it just needs to be cleaned up.
Not just that, but it's.
If I may respond to a few things, I don't have great answers for a lot of the points that are being made, and I appreciate everyone vocalizing. Thank you very much. In terms of the latrine.
Taylor?
Yeah.
There's
Can
two
I
hands up.
speak real quickly?
Yes,
This is
yes.
Tiffany Angus with OCE.
Yep.
My concern is that we get funding through the EPA to do a cleanup that we can't actually complete and close the site because of existing FUDS contamination. As we were excavating, water that was trapped under the building because of the previous record of decision protocols, Ahtna blocked the water into the building. As we excavated below the engineering controls, it flooded into our excavation. So now we're using funding that's EPA funding and cross-contaminating with bunker C fuel that's trapped under the building. And how we get that evaluated, and you know, I did review the World War II tank farm results from last year. It has definitely been there's free product on that site. It's known, and the plume is spreading. So there is like a miscommunication between using funding from one department, the EPA, to clean up something, to try to close a site that we cannot close because of Army Corps, you know, contamination that's already there. And that's just a misuse of time and money, and it's frustrating. Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany.
And then Donna also has her hand raised here on the computer.
We'll do Donna and then we'll do Jim after that.
Yeah, could jump on. Can you refresh us on the active war exemption, I guess it is? I mean, I understand Coral pay for cleaning up something that's caused by an active war. So who's the Japanese responsible? Is there another federal program to pay for it? How does that work?
That's a good question. It does fall under ineligible under FUDs if it's an act of war. And so who is burdened with that cost of cleanup? You know, I'm not sure if it falls on the landowner or some other entity could be responsible for it, but I can certainly take a closer look at that.
The DEC says that the landowner is responsible.
Well, I think the landowner is always liable just because they're the landowner under state
So
regulation.
it deeded contaminated lands and then be liable for cleaning it up.
Yeah, I wish I also had a better understanding of the active war exemption. I can certainly look into that and provide you some better response.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how do you determine what's an active war and what isn't? I mean, it all happened during World War II, but, well, because if the Japanese was right where a bomb fell, that would be an active war, but if the military let a fuel tank leak in many years afterwards, and that would be core responsibility because it wasn't caused by, it was just caused by neglect, not a bomb from foreign power, I guess.
Well, that's a really good question. You know, who makes that determination? So, you know, contamination from a bomb itself, is that an act of war? Probably because it hit something else. I don't know.
Or things that were built 10 years before the war happened, before America entered the war.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there were proposals here to, in another project, the hospital, to actually ask the Japanese for funding to help build a hospital. I'm not sure where that went, but for the possibility, I guess.
I think it's a really good question, and I'll look into it a little bit more, and then in the next RAB, we can get you some kind of answer there.
Yeah.
Would it
You wanna
also
let
be
Donna go?
possible to reevaluate the conclusion that nothing can be done at 551? Because I feel like a groundwater pump and treat system would be appropriate. There are things that could be done that aren't currently in the record of decision on the World War II tank farm project that I think need to be reevaluated.
We can certainly take a look. I think that's a really good point, and we have an opportunity to evaluate effectiveness of the remedy that was implemented during the periodic reviews. It would probably also be worth to go back to the feasibility study and look to see what has already been evaluated as an effective remedy for that project.
Yeah, and Tiffany, did
That
you
would be
respond?
great.
Did you respond to that periodic review with photos? Okay.
I did not respond with photos. I responded to the document, but I can provide photos.
Yeah, I guess we've been, you know, if there's spottings of product, if there's GPS coordinates and photos, things like that, for us folks who aren't in town seeing it, that is really helpful documentation. So if you have anything like that.
We do.
Okay,
I'll
I know
create
you're
a package for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Donna still has her hand up.
Oh, Donna, yeah.
Hi, thank you. Donna Van Flyne from Unalaska Corporation. I have two things. I want to ask questions just to follow up on the 551 and the periodic review. Number one is, you know, we read the periodic review, and the only reason we had as many comments and such in-depth comments to that review is because we happened to have done a remediation project there. Had we not done that, we would not have been able to counter a lot of the things that were written in that review. They were just completely incorrect or just not done fully. For example, one of the monitoring wells was buried deep. It clearly was not, it wasn't sampled during your review period. The fact that there's bunker C fuel in the remediation site that we worked in, variety of things. It leads us as the landowner to really be concerned about these reports that we're getting from the Corps. How can we independently verify what you are telling us? When the one example we have, we could tell a lot of that information was not correct, or it wasn't fully fledged. It wasn't fully investigated. It's a real concern.
Pre-World War II tank farm, the comments, we could give more thorough responses. Because for example, Donna, I do remember the comment about the well that was buried, and I did investigate it. I looked at the photo logs, and it is buried now, but it looks like they've got to it right before that happened, I guess. But we can give more thorough responses and have more of a discussion on that. And then Josh, if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions, it seems like, about the pre-World War II tank farm. Some really great questions. And we can certainly set up a separate call or another meeting with interested parties and, give an overview of the project and talk more about those questions.
Yeah, well, I want to say everybody in that room is an interested party in contamination in Unalaska. Every single person. It's the whole reason the RAB exists, is because everybody in town is interested in contamination. This is not a let's talk on the side deal. It's why people want to talk. They want to tell you their stories. People are sick. People, it's just not okay. At what point, and this is my other question, is when is the Army Corps and the government going to clean up these lands in Unalaska, in a variety of places, but specifically right now in Unalaska? What responsibility do you feel that we are not getting the work done? You have, Josh, you mentioned all these barriers. All you mentioned was all these barriers to get to the point where you can do a remediation project or whatever. I've been looking because we are eligible for a number of grants. So I've been looking through to see what's been assessed, what's had reports. The Army Corps has had reports on a lot of things since the 80s, since the early 2000s. And yet here we are in 2024 saying, we haven't done enough. We haven't done enough investigation. The Army Corps needs to get going on this. I mean, at this rate, it's going to be 300 years before it's cleaned up. And when you say you've cleaned up the World War tank farm and you're now, quote, monitoring it, and it's still contaminating lands, it's not cleaned up. It's very frustrating, as you can imagine, as a landowner who cannot utilize their lands that they were given in a settlement in the 1970s.
So this is Denise again, and this time I want to comment on what Taylor said. And you think that it was monitored and checked the last time, but how is that? Are there photos taken of it? Because this is one of the reasons why Native corporations form these 8As, is because we want to clean up our own land. We can't trust that it's being cleaned up properly by somebody else who doesn't live here. Granted, we hope they do, but they don't have the same. It's not their land. It's not their property. They're not as invested in it as we are. And then we form an 8A, and all we're getting is pushback. When all we want to do is get this place cleaned up, which was a major military. Oh my gosh, I'm so upset. It was just so built up during the war, and it was bombed, and we just want to clean. And now we can't even utilize our shareholders that we hired to clean up because of I'm sorry to say it, I know that it's other things, but a darn scene.
I wanted to ask, it sounds like Donna made a good point that everyone in this room is a valuable party to have review in a meaningful way the reports, and government reports and scientific reports aren't exactly something that's easily translated for someone who isn't trained in this field. And so maybe even though Now I'm referencing my polls, and maybe those were not the best way to get information back, but maybe getting an in-depth discussion on these reports that are out for comment would be helpful, and we could get into the nitty-gritty sort of details. No?
We don't need your reports, we need our land.
Okay, and I did hear that like whenever we said our, intermediate steps of reports and
Yeah.
whatever, that's
we have
not.
members who don't read.
Mhm.
So
Would it be helpful to have a discussion though? Do you think that would be,
we can talk it to death, but the bottom line is
the bigger
exactly
picture?
what Denise is saying. It's been 80 years. And it's actually been a lot longer than 80 years because a MACNAC, 10 years before the entry to the World War II, they were making 5 islands into one. They were connecting islands. They were blowing up mountains. And so it was a lot before. It was in the 20s they were here, 30s they were here, not 1942. So it's been more than 80 years. So the bottom line, keep in mind your goal, not just getting to the goal. People study it out into depth, and every 10 years it changes. It becomes a completely different problem. It's dangerous for your workers. You can do a study saying you can't do this because it's too dangerous to clean up. It's too dangerous to the people who live here. So I think that's what Jenice's point is.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And if I add one more thing, then I'll pass off.
There's a Tiffany has her hand up.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
I actually think a few meetings would be helpful. In particular, based off of the summer's field work, like a meeting with the Army Corps about the lack of field correlation for our Humpy Cove project, which was also demonstrated last year and in several previous Army Corps jobs. Being able to discuss that and the limitations of this type of work here because of the biogenic interference and the cleanup, like I am all about having meetings. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do it.
Thanks, Tiffany. We're just gonna, I think marrying the two, making progress, incremental progress, and communicating it effectively, showing you the progress that we're making at a government pace is important. But keeping in mind the larger goal, I'm hearing that. I don't know if there's anything else that we could provide in terms of the global timeline for the MACNAC projects.
No, everything's very, project specific. We do our best to expedite the cleanups as we can.
This is Denise again, and I just want you to take this back, and you've already heard this, and you're doing these polls, and you're doing these timelines. My grandfather and grandmother had like a day's notice to pack up and leave their community. So if you expect, the government expects our people just to pick up and go, and then have to wait 80 years to clean up after that, no wonder we're frustrated.
There's a hand in the room, and then Natalie has her hand up.
In areas like the green one, where you're basically refusing to let us clean it up with some cement. And for the building 551 area, that is so saturated with petroleum that you can't track where it is and where it's going. The fact that it's underneath the building. I'd really like to hear about you guys outside the box. Micro remediation, something. Options. Lift up the dam slab, clean up underneath it, put it back into. I'd really like to hear some solutions about how we can clean it. not about, you know, reporting on how you can't clean it. I'd really like to flip the script and I want you to start thinking outside the box.
That's a great point. Great point. I think Tiffany echoed that as well by saying, let's look at these other things we've looked at in the past with, you know, pump and treat or things like that. So I appreciate you saying that. That's great. And I think we have looked at some options for cleaning up at the latrine site in terms of moving that concrete. Wasn't that part of your MOA process?
Yeah, so the MOA is its own thing. Section 106 process is its own beast. But for building 551, I know that we've talked about the time that it has gone since the decisions that were made years ago. We're in a different place now, so there's different technology. So yes, I think that's a very valuable point. I don't know what the best way of sharing that with folks is. Do you have any insight there, Josh?
Well, I think the best route to do it through is the periodic reviews and to explore some new technologies in that.
And that's our process to look at what's available. And I know it's another report, but for our process, that's how we look at technologies and we go through and evaluate. Do you want to add something?
Well, I'm just gonna say, if you're not gonna do it, you need to let us do it.
Yeah. That's really
Yeah, you
why we're here.
can approve a technology and 5 years from now, it's gonna be obsolete, you'll approve a second different one. And then it just, the process, just get a person with a shovel if that's what it takes.
Honestly, I do give the section 106 for some important things like the bunker on Hill 400 and the aerology building and some of the other important things, but this is a falling down piece of Quonset hut that is a hazard. It should have just been completely removed. There should be exceptions to this whole section 106 business if it's not going to be interpretive to anything.
Yeah, and yes, I think we talked a little bit about this during the MOA discussion.
And I'm still going to keep bringing it
That's
up.
okay,
because
yeah.
It should be able just to. Unalaska Corporation, all of our lands are considered developable or usable by our shareholders. And if we don't want a slab and some rusted down metal on top of our property, we'd like to have it just gone.
Yeah.
Natalie still has her hand up.
Oh, Nellie, sorry.
Go ahead, Natalie.
Yeah, thank you. So I wanted to go back to Josh, your comment was that FUDS is cleaning up as best they can. They're expediting it as best they can. And so I guess my question is if this is FUDS best, who can the community, the stakeholders talk to make listen to the reality of the situation and how the Corps' best is completely inadequate? When Senator Murkowski held the field hearing there 2 years ago, she specifically told FUDS that the lack of urgency is unacceptable. And from what I'm hearing in the room is that FUDS acknowledges that and it accepts it. But what I want to know is what other industry or profession would be okay knowing that their lack of action is literally killing people and has been, because I don't know of a single other profession that is acceptable. So my question is, who, if this group isn't the people that are going to get something done, who can the community and the stakeholders? Senator Murkowski was unable to get FUDS to take some action. And I do want to point out that this so far has been the best FUDS meeting because I feel like it's the first time FUDS is actually listening to the community and the stakeholders.
Thanks for that comment. Yeah, no, it's great to be here and hear everybody's perspectives. And we definitely do take to heart the community input. And, you know, going back to my previous point was really that we are trying to expedite cleanup as we can. And, you know, there are some unfortunate field delays sometimes, and we do have to go and investigate and, you know, complete things like feasibility studies to make sure that the remedy that we are going to implement is going to be effective and long-term. So, we.
Josh, wouldn't you agree that something would be better than nothing at this point?
Yeah, I mean, we want to do as much as we can, and
Do you?
I believe we've
Because to
done.
me, those are words, Josh, with all due respect, those are words. There is no meat or teeth to everything you're saying. And in a way, it's extremely patronizing to the entire community and everybody on this meeting to say that FUDS is doing the best it can. And for 90 years or 80 years or 70 years or 60 years, the best is basically doing nothing.
It's a frustrating time, Natalie. We do hear you, and and I'm sorry that stuff is taking longer.
Lisa, I cannot hear and listen anymore to it's frustrating. We hear you. We're doing our best. Because again, I don't know what other industry would get away with this being the best that they can do, which once again is literally doing nothing but delaying, flying into Unalaska for a day or two, hearing quote unquote the community, and then going back and reporting and doing the exact same thing 3 months later, and nothing has happened or changed.
Comment in the room.
Went to the University of London studying endangered languages all over the world, and when they were doing their final report, they wanted to cut out sections of our recordings of actual conversations in our language. And my comment to them was that the silence in our language is just as important as our words, and you cannot cut out a 12-minute section of silence because that's not in our language. That's part of who we are. The same way that this room is filled with people who are not here and will not answer your polls. They won't read your questionnaires. They won't be part of your feasibility study. You have to listen to the silent voices that are screaming at you, dying for the grave, saying, no more. Forgive you for such a painful introduction to your job.
No, it's really actually refreshing to hear the perspectives. This being my first RAB here.
More than just Mars with box. It's so many people who are not here, who are calling from the grave. Listen to their voices.
Thank you for that.
I'm gonna jump in for a second. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna tell you that you hear, you don't get here. So I can tell you here and listening. Yeah, I can tell you where this room for from the time I've been here, and maybe you guys want to do change and they really want to do, but that doesn't help you anyway, in the future. I can tell you other options we have. More different kinds of meetings. Alaska Corporation, as the Village Corporation, has the ability to request government to corporation consultation with our district manager. So he is our leader, even though Fred's kind of lives in a different system. He is our decision maker for the district. That being said, that is another voice we can then bring it up to change, because that's ultimately what you need. I don't think this is a waste of time. So I guess we just see that do what you say. We might not feel it the same way because we're not here. We don't live here and we don't have ancestors, so there's no way we
But
can.
there have been people just like you, just as passionate, just as heart-rending, passionate about their job 10 years ago, 20, 50 years ago. The same people are sitting in your chair. Moving on. Someone else who's with us. Pass the baton to people who will actually do the job. OC, give them the funding to do the job.
This is where this other meeting could be helpful. And that's not the entire community. It's the corporation, but if that's the corporation working on behalf of the community, if that's what the community feels, we bring that message there. that's another way to bring that message up to a bigger change, which it sounds like, you know, needs to happen and potentially happen. One of us in here can make that happen. We can take that, I can take it to the commander. You can request that meeting. That's just another tool. It's your time here. And so if you want to, if you just be silent and listen the entire time, and then set up another meeting with that, you can do that. It's harder than you need it to go. But just know that there are limitations in this way. Because there are other ways we can look at it. Maybe we'll just go the same way. But if we can work to help make something actually happen.
Well, and I thank you for that. This is Denise again for the record. It's just, we're going through a very rough week right now. One of our elders passed away from cancer, from fighting it, and it's probably why you don't have many people here. They're getting prepared for the funeral tomorrow. And she was only in her mid-60s. So, you know, it is horrible to think about what is going on health-wise in this country and in this region and in Alaska. I can't be selfish and just think for my community, but it's horrible. And I know you know, but it's that it was McBride, but it's bad.
Okay, so I have about 5 different questions. So I think it was mentioned, you said the circular process typically 3 to 5 years. There's a lot of wiggle in that. How do we get that down as short as possible? Now, because if we 2.5 years or 3 years is short as possible. So how do we get the circular process as fast as possible? Is there like a method to do that? Or getting it together quickly?
Well, it depends on the site. I don't have a really good answer for you. It also depends on whether it's an actual CERCLA project or whether it's a petroleum project that's following that process. Process moves through different phases that include, you know, some various aspects of investigation, and then determining feasibility and the remedy. So yeah, it takes quite some time.
I mean, I'm loosely familiar with it. And I guess the question is like, can some of those be done concurrently? Like, oh, if this is what we suspect, then here are our initial suggestions, sort of coming up with the solution while we're doing the investigation as well.
Yeah, I think for a lot of petroleum sites, that's a possibility. So that's something that we can explore.
Then the other one is, so I think I'm not super familiar with building 555. But you guys were mentioning that you guys were waiting for some land use change or some other restrictions around that. Is there like the ability for the Army Corps to do quick turnarounds? Because we do know there's contamination levels, not necessarily some investigation that needs to happen. If there is some sort of land use change there, can the Army Corps quickly come back or with something like some sort of information?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think if the land use was to change today, they said, for example, you know, it was okay to dig up the road or that we're going to take the building down or whatever it was, it would probably still take us at least 2 years before we made it out there. And we'd have to add that to the work plan and get that funding approved. So I would say at least that one.
So section 106, is that the historical preservation?
Yeah, that's the part that affects the.
Okay, so I guess the question I have there is, obviously certain historical things we're trying to preserve historical sites, tear down the buffer up Buffer Hill. But for certain sites that are substantially more impactful, is there a way to say that this is immediately harmful and we should get rid of this as soon as possible?
I could add a little bit to that. We looked into what we could do about this latrine in terms of like navigating the process to get under it.
When it was added to the registry as a National Historic Landmark, it was stamped. That's why it was added at the time. Now it's not, obviously, but it already has gone down and been added to the registry. Then there was a discussion about delisting it as a National Historic Landmark. I think we talked about that in the MOA call, right? Yeah, and then it gets complicated with federal funds are being spent. You can't destroy a National Historic Landmark in the middle of it without going through a process, and the delisting is time consuming. That's outside of the Corps of Engineers, but yes, that's what the process we're stuck in.
So these historical assessments, I guess this goes back to my first point, can they be done currently with things like information investigation?
When you say historical assessments, do you mean?
I assume that's sort of like when you're bringing someone out here, like they were mentioning, take photos, right? Can that be done concurrently with the investigation, like ultimate evaluation?
Yeah, that's the plan, is to have it, like, have someone come out and do a photo inventory,
Yeah,
basically.
because like, I think the issue here is like, so we had the environmental assessment that was conducted previously. It seems like this could have been done concurrently, right? We could have sort of combined this entire process.
Yeah, so this particular feature has its own kind of history tied up, but the idea is that it's going to be streamlined moving forward, because now we know that there's going to be an impact. We know that the Section 106 process is happening, so we're going to go out and take photos at the same time as the remediation.
Tiffany has her hand up.
So
for this particular feature, I guess I'm a little bit concerned that it was always known that the tank was directly next to the concrete pad that was documented in Army Corps documents and previous investigations. So having it be listed as not a SHPO concern and then having that change so last minute when it was previously documented as such was a surprise.
Yeah, agreed.
So one other thing, so it sounded like, actually, I guess two other things. So the first one is it sounds like, because I've been hearing that there had been monitoring wells over at the tank site. But off the top of my head, I don't recall what you guys were sampling, like if you guys were sampling contamination there, or how bad it was, but it sounds like OCD found it to be substantially worse. So I guess that like raises some concerns about the other sampling wells that we have located.
So there's known free product so this is the pre-World War II tank farm. Yeah, so there's known free product sitting at the top of the groundwater out there, and that's what we're talking about with, it was excavated, so there were these wood stave tanks above ground, they leaked. A bunch of soil was excavated a long time ago, but then basically the excavation ran up to the building footprint, and then we just didn't go any further than that, like digging into basically tearing down the building to get to the location. So we know there's free product that's,
there was actually free product in 3 of those wells that were sampled by OTNA last year.
Yeah, we know that there's free product at the site. There's measurements that are taken of it every year. Yeah, so that's one of the site conditions.
So I guess the question is if we know that there's free products that's being hit by the monitoring wells, how quickly like can remediation be done? You know, right?
Yeah, so back history of the site, they looked at different options for getting at it. They did the soil excavation up to the edge, and then they did these controls to kind of limit exposure, just the like crawl space covers, things like that. But now, like we mentioned, it's been a long time. We're finishing up a periodic review right now, and we're going to be working into the next phase. It's a continual cycle. We're in this long-term monitoring, which means we monitor and we assess the changing situation. So this is the one that we're working on right now is the second periodic review, and then we're moving into our third. And this is our opportunity to figure out what's changed in terms of technology, in terms of land use, in terms of access, getting these photos, knowing that there's product and areas that y'all excavated. That's really helpful. So all that information we can use to shape how we move forward and be more constructive. So I find this really beneficial. I know I'm a new face. I know I'm a new person that is just adding my own enthusiasm and passion to it, but I do need that. Yeah. So we do want to make a difference, and we do want to like be constructive. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add.
No, I think you hit it. Thank you. And you also mentioned going to the what?
So, yeah,
Sorry.
so it's an option under our consultation policy, so. The name corporation as a landowner has the right to consult, but also under section 106. So I'm the way they can request consultation, leadership to leadership level. So just another way to take this, because talking about change that has to happen beyond this world. Right? Because we're just having right about leading values. You have to take this to a higher level to see what's some real change, depending on how these things are work. That's another avenue to do it. So I just want to make sure that I'm here to offer that up as a potential. And then maybe not be the solution, it's another way to try.
Well, and I appreciate that, this is Denise again for the record, I appreciate that the chair brought this up, because I do feel like there should be a way to streamline doing the section 106 along with the assessments, because when I was on the RAB for a little while, and I was politely told I should remove myself when OCE got the contract to run the RAB for a little while, because I was going to be the, I guess, a facilitator. But when I first got on the RAB, the priority sites were picked, and one of those was the Clean one. And why the section 106 didn't begin then, I don't know. We wasted a whole field season. The contract was awarded, and I know you don't want to get into all of that, but the contract was awarded. We were ready to go to clean up our own lands with our environmental company, and then find out that section 106 was going to prevent us from doing that. And we're going through this MOA process when I get that there's other stakeholders, and I understand that, but it's OC's lands, and we should be able to quickly say, this is what we want done. And we have a very short field season in the oceans, like elsewhere in Alaska. It's very difficult to get barges lined up. We have many entities that have a hard time bringing them. And so to have the government come in and say, oh, all of a sudden there's this requirement that we have to do this MOA, but and maybe do it after that. There's no way for us to do that. We have to book things well in advance to come out here. So if there's a way to streamline it to where it's all done at once, just feel that it would be more beneficial to get things cleaned up. I'm sitting here looking at this poll, and I know this is where it came up from at the beginning, is pick the next sites. We'll pick the next sites, but we haven't cleaned up the ones that we picked up 3 years ago.
Yeah, just kind of showing the pace that we're working at, which I think is the bottom line of what everyone here is emphasizing, is the dissatisfaction with the pace that we're moving at. And
well, it seems like, my opinion, it feels like this is going to be me speaking as a community member. Cor came in here, asked us, and I was so excited for the RAB, asked us, what do you want to have cleaned up? We get to have a say. These are these sites. This is what we want cleaned up. We have berry picking. We use to go run our dogs, to take our family. It's a run every year through PCR. It's a race. We want this site cleaned up. Forest is cool. We're going to clean it up. They go through the whole process of putting it out there and getting bids in, and then award it, and then come out again at a next RAB meeting and take pictures. Oh, never mind. Now we need to go and do this 106 and do an MOA. And it's another year that we have to wait, where we could have been cleaning this year. And that was the 2 years, the 3 years. Now we have to wait another year. And then we're told, this is now going to be me as the OC shareholder. We formed this 8A to clean up our own lands. We're brand new at doing it. It's like having a toddler. The Corps should be helping us along to get to where we can clean up our own lands. But instead, we're told, no, never mind, you're not doing it now. We understand there's some other company gonna come clean up our lands now for latrine 1. Nobody's told us who that is. We gave a right of entry to the Corps to clean up lands, hoping that it would be our company cleaning up our own lands, so we would know it was done to how we want. And now all of a sudden, somebody else is coming in based on all this time we spent to try to get it clean, hired our shareholders, got them trained, got them housing. No, we didn't get you housing, but we bought housing in case we needed it for cleanup. And then, never mind, we're gonna bring somebody else into your community to do the cleanup. Not even from our region is what I understand. And I don't understand it at all. You're supposed to be helping us. Sorry, I know this was all about polls, but that is part of the poll thing.
How many people took this poll?
I think it was like 30 or so.
Right.
Yeah.
There are 100 people in this meeting who are not answering
Yeah.
the question, so that's might look good on your studies and stuff, but ineffective.
No, yeah, I hear you. I think.
And how many were the court?
That's a good question. I don't think that core employees answered this one, but I can double check. But I hear the point that you're making. And I'm aware that the RAB, I mean, we had this meeting, we want to engage, but we know it's a big ask to come out here and say it. So whatever would be the most useful way to go about this, we can do that. I know that's a small potatoes item, but
Does the Army Corps of Engineers have any authorization to designate a few more funding? Designate funding?
Not the FUDS program that we work under, if that's, yeah.
So I think it was mentioned that some of these are, so a few questions about that. So, I guess do we have a list of the sites that are, is it, or no, it's that our site, right, 1 of 6 sites? Like, do we have that sort of like exhaustive list of them?
yeah, so the process usually, the process starts out that if we are plenty of work in an area, then we look at like the boundaries of the project area, and we look for any sites, national historic landmarks that are on the registry that come up in that area. And then we go through this process to figure out if there's an adverse effect. During the MOA call, you say staff have said that this is a lesson learned. There's some miscommunication in terms of where things were going to be taking place. And so there's a discussion about how the 106 process could be better informed. But yeah, that is an action item for kind of assessing better in the future. And do you have anything to add there, Sean?
No, I don't want to waste words and waste your time. That's where I'm sitting now. Trying to think of something that come out of my mouth is going to be helpful for what you're trying to do. Keep coming back to this own one solution. It's not a solution. But I just want to, again, this is your time to sit here and you can tell us as much as really as you want. There's a couple of things that keep coming up, that is just, the time is ridiculous, which it absolutely is. Communication is ridiculous. It's real lands, and you should be able to get paid on how work is being done and who's doing the work, and that's really true. But again, everybody on the staff will sit here and you can record this and listen to it. I'm not gonna have a good answer. I'm just gonna tell you an answer today that's really empathetic, that's just a fee. But we want to. and
I'm
we
not
can
gonna
do this
fight with
information
you all the
today.
way downtown.
Yeah,
We
you
can
could
take this
stay.
information today. We can
Like,
take the information if you want to meet with the commander.
Could you
And I don't
mute
know if
yourself,
you
please?
And I personally, for myself, I would do everything I can to help connect you with other decision makers so you can have your voice heard. And that doesn't fix anything. But I just want to make sure that I waste your time and I'm not wasting your time with my speak.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a couple questions. So I'm coming as a community member, but I've been here almost a year now. I would like to know how long has the Corps known that this contamination causes cancer, is killing the natives? I'm on the board with your brother, love this. I want to know why y'all aren't so upset or like so. To me personally, I feel like y'all should have someone higher up come out here for every funeral, attend every funeral, attend doctor's appointments for people that are fighting cancer. I have an 11-year-old. I have kidney problems, cancer runs in my family. Yes, we had the choice to move out here. You know, it was up to us. But so are y'all telling me that 80 years when these lands aren't clean and we have to bury her, we have to bury him, we have to bury her, and it's the Army's fault? Like, can y'all tell me how long y'all have known that this stuff is killing these people? Like, I'm Native, I'm not Alaska Native, I'm Choctaw Native. But to me, like this community has been so welcoming. You will not find a better community to live in with these people out here. And to me, it's very upsetting that I had to hear that she's had cancer 3 times. She's had 12 family members die from cancer. And to me, like this is my 3rd meeting we've been to, and y'all have not got anything, nothing done, nothing. And I don't want to have to tell my son, hey, your mom has cancer because this contamination out here that nobody gave a shit about cleaning up. That's how I personally look at this. I not only lived here a year, but we are a community member, and it's just upsetting. So I just don't want to have to see anybody else die from this. This is a stupid reason because it just seems like nobody cares. Like nobody wants to get the ball rolling. Like, why are we having meeting after meeting after meeting over the same exact thing? So, but I just feel that somebody higher up should have to attend every single funeral that is held out here for these elders or the young people. Anybody out here who has died from this contamination, somebody higher up should come to these funerals. And that's just how I feel about it because it's just not right.
Been going to doctors for 10 weeks. That's why I love ever somebody coming to my. Well, a lot. At least. My sister had a cancer that was never seen in a female before, never seen in a Native American last name. So, these cancers are unique to these things. All of them. And speaking to these kind of things, the brothers and myself, we live at the space. Our child together. Going back on Fort Leadership. And I should go have one on the brothers and that. I said, that's 3, I have this, that's 3. And there's some low points that because there's a new pool, they we never check those well points, like and that means there's something there that we need to be concerned about. And on the other property, it doesn't have water down there. Is it safe for me to dig a well point for my own water down there? Yeah, my own at my cabin and cabin like something here. We don't want to have to live there. They started playing that the favorite when the Iraq was started in the quantity of this loss. Yeah, they're finished, and it was a place where all the explosives were stored, all the bombs and shells, but
that was also a target. Being out there, and Jacobs told me, I wouldn't be, digging around in those hills because they're full of unexploded ordnance. And is there a way to detect if there's unexploded things that's in the field radius? We did find a lot of shrapnel, some really heavy shrapnel. What they would want, their bomb holes out so they could do it. Everything doesn't get blown up, everything is blown steps. But I don't know, I just kind of got things that they have. I don't know what to say. Like, what's my love? Did you do kind of studies? I mean,
Yeah, so the munitions project. Yeah, for the unexploded ordnance and the munitions, we're working on it. We are working with Sacramento folks. Who are some of those folks on the call?
There were.
Yeah, I'm
But
still on.
yeah.
It is a very large area, and that's like the. All right, guys. For the work that we do, whenever we're doing the munitions, which is the project boundary, we cover a huge portion of the island. Is we look at all the historical documentation, and figure out what areas are likely to have possible unexploded ordnance or conditions in general contamination, and then we focus on those areas. And so that's the work that we're going through now, is we're looking at all the historical photos and documentation of going through that process. You mentioned some Jacobs wells. Did you say it's on Captain Bay? Okay.
This was the road here, when I was, there were hundreds of barrels. 55 gallon drums up there. We used to hop from barrel to barrel and pop. And they were filled with waste oil, very thick waste oil. And a lot of them were already rusted dead and leaking into the ground. But by the time Jacobs got here, most of them disintegrated. So there's a lot of that in the ground, which maybe it's down the temperature passes from over. I don't know if it's safe to garden up there, but how to be.
I don't know about that one, but I'll look into it and I can sort of like talk to you about it.
We didn't do all this.
Okay.
I'd be hiking, 12 miles up in the hills and there'd be a field with the sheen on top of the swampy area. That's, I don't think you guys would ever, or anybody will ever. When you start giving up enough land for people to live here, everybody here has 3 jobs because there's not enough housing, because there's not enough land that we can use.
Real quick, you said that somebody else is coming up in the RMS. I'll speak views on that because I know we started our own company. We both went training, we started that, OCE. So I don't.
That's the rumor I've heard. So I don't know if that's
I'm more
true.
confused, but we started our own company, clean our own land. It's probably.
I'd like to know if that's true or not, or who has the contract now for everything.
There's no contract awarded at the moment. So
Are you required to put it out when we do?
I don't know. I don't think so because we're in this 8A realm. So it's of its own contracting.
Program, yeah.
Thank you. And of course, because it's contracting, it has to do with money. That means that there's a lot of laws tied to it, and contracting gets to speak on it, but no one else really gets to speak on it. So it's really unsatisfying. I'm telling you, it hasn't been awarded to anyone, and that was static. So
Does the Unalaska folks have access to any legal experts? Would you focus just on Alaska? And if you don't, can you find some?
internally, we have like a funds lawyer Is that what you're asking? Like,
Someone who's just focused on Unalaska Island.
yeah, so they're not focused on just Unalaska Island, but have been prioritizing it to push everything through and make sure that everything is.
To read the 88 laws then.
Yes, it's a priority. Those discussions are happening. And the funds lawyer and there's contracting lawyer too, and they have both made it a priority internally. The commander has issued
Send
that.
those guys out to me.
Why is it going, over there at, I just think,
Mhm.
why would that be invested in?
Do I have any insight there?
Is it safer for the workers?
Well, I don't know the whole history of Fort Leonard and why it got funded prior to something like Ballyhoo.
I think
But
part of
we-
it is sorry to interrupt you, is
Sure.
part of it, there's different types of projects that the FUDS program works on, munitions projects versus the soil contamination projects. And I think sometimes our headquarters wants to initiate more of those munitions projects that have been hanging out there for just as long as the soil projects. But sometimes projects get ranked in terms of the type of project, munitions versus a soil project. Yeah.
It does. Sorry if I misunderstood. I thought you were maybe talking about the munitions projects.
The Fort Leonard, right? Or,
well, there's also munitions here on a MACNAC for Balls. Yeah.
Why is Fort Leonard happening so quickly and seemingly happening so quickly when the MACNAC projects are ongoing, right? Did I
yeah.
To Fort Leonard, we know that when they came, the Corps came with Jacobs, whoever it was, and they blew up some of the ammunition that was over there, and it went far. Some of it actually got into the water. Is FUD's gonna do a survey in the water over there? It's a subsistence area. And we'd like to know it's safe, especially with the fishing and such that goes on in Center Harbor.
Yeah, let me just take a moment. I don't want to end this conversation. I'm trying to be mindful of this time. It's a little bit, or right
It's
at
almost 8, yeah.
Jeremy is our project manager for that. He may not be on the line anymore, but he is, wants to speak up.
And someone from the other project manager said she was still on just a minute ago.
Yeah, sorry, this is Carrie Nelson. I'm with the Range Support Center where we awarded the contract for Fort Leonard and also for Burma Road.
But I guess the question though, I guess the question that Denise is asking though is the concern raised about some of the blow in place that they did and some of the remnants or residual from that, she says went in the ocean and she's concerned about subsistence or fishing in that region. Is that correct?
Understanding
The Navy has conducted a survey in the water, and that is on the X docs and can be downloaded by the public. We have not specifically addressed anything in the water. The contract that we awarded is strictly land-based, so I guess I couldn't give you, with any confidence on what's in the water and what's been investigated other than the Navy's report.
Thank you.
So I guess I had another question on the 106 stuff. So it sounds like Unalaska Corporation sort of use like historical sites out there as building. Okay, that's sort of like OC's opinion on it. Like, are these things able to be just wholesale removed if they're considered historical? Like, I know, take this, that was moved out of, rural Montana, can we move like a public stream from Unalaska pretty easily? If we're talking about more dramatic solutions, I don't see why not, right? So I don't know, is that something that's available so that this sort of item is just,
Oh my gosh, sorry.
can we just remove the historical items and like leave them to someone else? Is that an option?
So specifically for latrine one, the MOA is still in progress, and it's being discussed with the OC, and other invited parties. But in general, yeah, there's like a process to delist stuff.
I'm sort of like thinking this, you mentioned that delisting was, well, that's sort of follow-up question, Madison. But if we can't, if there's a way to get around the delisting process, sort of saying like, you say this building is historic, so here's your building, leave it. Is that an option? We move an entire sort of historic building?
Yeah, so for section 106, the federal funds are being spent on a landmark, like that impacts the landmark. If the landmark is destroyed, the federal funds stop.
Sure.
So, but if we're not in that federal funding process, then the landmark could be destroyed. And I don't take this as legal advice. This has to be vetted fully, but that's generally the limited knowledge I have, is that once federal funds are being spent in the area, then it kind of things in law.
Well, there's a precedent here for historic buildings, nuisance, and parents have blown off and smashing these windows there. But the Toledo building, for instance, that was a mention. That was a mention.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about I think Larissa might have brought up building blood debris. It was brought up a lot in our conversations. Very valuable input. I think it highlighted a lot of concerns. We knew about Unalaska Valley, and we should have just applied the same knowledge to anywhere that has debris. I would assume that the whole area, yeah. But I'm not sure what the process is. I'm not sure. Does anyone know off the top of their head? I'm not an archaeologist. Does anyone know off the top of their head how many national historic landmarks are here?
I was actually going to ask you that because I also take my dogs up to the Coast Guard signs, the Coast Guard sign front side of Value up there like every day.
Oh.
And there's doors from the old, what do we call it? The big Quonset, that's the big one, the big heavy
Oh,
doors.
yeah.
Some are hanging like one hinge. I'm just waiting for it to fall. And then the other piece of the door just in the grass. So my dogs are gonna chase girls. So they run through there and I'm screaming at them every time, waiting for them to get killed by a piece of that door or something. Or, people walk up there and they very big. And I was like, that's gonna fall on something. It would just be so quick and easy to take our truck and excavator, go up there and grab those doors, help them, put it back in the dump truck. You want to keep it somewhere, go. If not, I would split the truck out. But I don't know if that's one of those 106 sites,
Can you clean a there of a kind and remove it from the property and put it somewhere else?
So I'm going to say this, and I want Josh to correct me, but my understanding is that we can't just go out and grab a building, but if there is contamination underneath it, and we document it, and we say, like, we're going to impact the site, we want to be respectful, take into everyone's opinions and views on this landmark into consideration, go through the MOA process, then we can destroy it to get to the contamination, which is what we're doing for latrine one. The idea is that the the building materials that are remaining, how much, the footprint, and the debris that's on top would be hauled off with what's excavated.
Yeah, again, I'm also not an archaeologist. And as we're going through these discussions, those are some really great questions. I think it might be value in having our archaeologists come and give some sort of presentation on section 106.
She did.
Oh, she did. Okay.
Kelly participated, and go ahead, Larissa.
I think now would probably be a good time to remind everyone of all the burials and archaeological sites that were completely destroyed, plowed through, bunkers were placed in, and then the entire site was plopped right on top. A really good example of that is the Spit site. Those will never be the same either. I just want to remind everybody of that. There are remains that are returned to us, skulls that are mailed to us from GIs, families of GIs. That is still happening today. Just want to remind you guys of that. When you're talking about a latrine, please remember all the sites that were completely destroyed in the process.
Yeah, and thank you. We can definitely lose track of the bigger picture when we're going through this 106 process. We're just talking about this latrine, this historic landmark. But I can empathize that that is a latrine from World War II, and there's a lot of not positive feelings towards that, especially when it's as has been communicated, impacting remediation. And so I don't know if y'all want to add anything.
Tiffany, I think, wants to add something.
Oh, go ahead, Tiffany.
I guess my concern is that the Army Corps documented the contamination directly adjacent to the footprint of latrine 1. That's the only place that they documented exceeded levels of contamination. And they were the ones that determined no adverse effect on the footprint. They award the work, and then we're kind of finding this out later that it's unexpected.
Yeah. I don't have a great response. Can you remind me, Tiffany, were you on the MOA call? I don't think so.
No, I was not.
Okay. So the general response is that we're getting into a little bit of contractual territory. So I just want to throw it out there that we have to be mindful of what all we get into the details of, to be respectful of all of those matters. But for the 106, yeah, the no adverse effect had to do with there were some locations that were mapped out, and it was understood at the time of the 2023, I think July, section 106, that there was not going to be an adverse effect. And then with more information that came this year, that was changed. I don't have a better response.
Like my understanding of what the Army Corps has documented is that the only elevated levels of contamination were documented directly adjacent to that footprint. And then there was a no adverse effect filed with SHPO. And then this work was awarded and then changed this summer.
Do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't know much about the specifics, but yeah, I don't know much about the specifics of, you know, the occurring of events, but
I think the change is the contamination goes under that footprint, as before we assumed it was only adjacent to the footprint. That's what changed in terms of.
No, it was actually documented directly below the UST.
Okay. Correct.
And it was the only place it was documented was directly below the UST, which is also where we sampled adjacent to the footprint. We didn't sample underneath the footing. But it was documented before directly adjacent to the footprint previously.
And I don't want this to be again for the record. I don't want to. I'm not trying to get into any of the contracting part for this area, but I do have a question on how were these phases or assessments, and maybe they weren't phase ones, the assessments conducted in the 80s or whenever they were done? Was it just in the main, I guess, industry area of the community, or was it done everywhere? Because we find out latrine 1 is a problem. When the Carly Moses Boat Harbor was being constructed, contamination was found from World War II, and the city and OC had to pay for the cleanup. And then when APIA, Aleutian Pribilof Islands Association, was cleaning or getting ready to build their Head Start facility, they also ran contamination in World War II era, because you can take that old building map and put it on and see where there was a building right there. So how were these assessments done before? Because now we have Aleutian Pribilof Islands Association, or we want to build housing on Strawberry Hill, but we're having to use brownfield funding that we apply for to assess it, because we have no idea. We can't find any documentation on what types of assessments were done on that property or on all of Little South America. And that's where contamination was found also. How were these assessments done? Can we find it, or is there going to be another assessment completed now that we know more?
That's a good question. The quick answer that's actionable is if you do have a question about finding a report, you can reach out to me and I'll point you in the right direction, or I'll look with you and then hopefully speed up that process. I won't know off the top of my head because there's a lot of reports going a long time, but we can look into it. For this Little South America site, I think there was work 1998 and 2000. I think that's about as recent as the work got up until now. I might be off 1 or 2 years.
You are a little bit, because when the Carly Moses Boat Harbor was constructed, it was Henry Swanson Drive that's now Henry Swanson Drive. We don't know that there was any assessment work done there. Otherwise, they would have found that this underground tank had leaked into the land.
I'm just talking about Little South America.
This is Little South America.
Sorry, like the latrine one, the area that
no, I'm talking about, and the reason I'm bringing it up is that the Strawberry Hill and Little South America are very developable areas. But we don't want to lease it out if we believe there's going to be contamination in the soil, especially to a nonprofit organization who's trying to build something to help the community. It just isn't, right to do that, and they won't have the funding to clean it up themselves. And there's numerous other places that OC has tried to do leases in the past where an underground tank fuel spill has been found. So I'm just curious how these assessments were done in the 80s to say, no, there's no contamination there, just remove the building. Or was there test pits done? What was done in all of the, where there was underground tanks? We know the military had great maps showing where buildings were. So was every building site tested so we can be reasonably comfortable knowing that there's no contamination, although we know that can be not true because we found numerous as we've been trying to construct. One was Margaret Bay. We lost a large tenant because we couldn't build a warehouse. There was contamination.
Well, thinking of the DEC contaminated sites map, and
these aren't on that site.
So they aren't on that site. Okay. This is.
I can try and jump in a little bit, talking about work that was done a long time ago in the 80s, which is kind of the beginning of the floods program. And just to add, I don't know the exact area we're talking about. So it could have been early floods, it could have been Army, it could have been anybody. But back in the 80s, they had a practice of kind of just going through installations, leveling them, cleaning up as they go. And that's how you end up with these sites and have a lot of foundations, questions about whether they had heating oil tanks or not, which a lot of them did, and they were missed. You mentioned buildings are moved, but then you find contamination. So there wasn't like a lot of great documentation. And again, Strawberry Hill is kind of one of those ones I want to learn more about. I don't know much about it, but my understanding is basically, they have also built things in the landfill and moved on.
Yeah, well, it's that, but there was also military structures up there during the war. And that's what my question is. These studies were done in the 80s, which is what you're using now to go determine cleanup areas, but we obviously can tell that those assessments weren't accurate or 100%. So is the Army Corps going to come out here, take that drawing of all the buildings and say, we want to test here, we're fairly certain there was an underground tank, or here, or here, or here? Or is it up to the landlord or the owner of the land now who wants to go construct something And forgive me, but you know it's World War II. We can't get funding from the Army Corps to go clean it. We have to clean it ourselves, and they may or may not help us remove the contaminants, which is what happened with Henry Swanson Drive construction. The city and OC both had to put a bill to clean up contamination from World War II.
Yeah, that's definitely unfortunate. So it's a tough question to answer. You know, if you find a site that you think is FUDs, then the best thing to do is let us know, and we'll definitely look into it. It's hard when you're already in mid-progress construction project and you encounter it.
A lot of these were grant funding, so there is a debt, you have to do it, and so now our hands are tied with our own properties. What I'm I guess suggesting then is that the Army Corps should come up with funding to come out here and do again another phase 1 or phase 2 site assessment of our properties in Alaska and the region, because it wasn't done properly in the 80s originally.
And just to take a step back, so the work I was talking about for like the little latrine area for Little South America, that was 1998, 2001. I think that's part of an island-wide effort to do what you're talking about. They went out to all these different places and they did soil boring, similar to what we're doing now. All this environmental testing is similar to what we're doing now. The methods, like the testing, the lab has changed. It's improved over time, but it's generally the same concept. Is that what you're referring to though? That's that level
I don't
of.
even think that was done properly then, because API Head Start was just built a few years ago, and CEM was maybe 10 years ago. Maybe more now, time flies as we get older, but obviously it still needs to be checked, because the island-wide one must not have been done completely properly.
Yeah, there's probably not an inventory or anything that we can reference like that that's built. We can look at what historical records we have and evaluate which one we should go back and look at, or maybe if we think an area wasn't assessed enough. And if you know the specific area you're thinking about, I guess I would say, you should let us know that area, and then we can look specifically.
She just did, she said. Nobody knows something.
Yep, excellent. There's a lot of sites throughout Alaska that we don't know about, haven't evaluated.
There's the aerial photography. If you went to the National Archives and looked, and you would see the buildings that were constructed there.
Oh, yeah, no, there's that.
Yeah, Tiffany said the work was 98, 2001 at
Yeah,
LSA. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
I guess.
one more question. Hold on one sec, Tiffany.
Businesses, homes still have pre-set filings, and a lot of the filings around are left over. Structures and docks that go up anymore. Is there any, is there too low on the list to be looked at and get rid of some of the creosote? I can't seem to get away from the fact that I'm going to get it. And I think it's very detrimental.
Or the Prius,
It's
just,
just nauseating.
None of them.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a pile of creosote logs on East Point Road. I think it came from East Point dock, that military dock back in the day. They updated it, Jake all about it. They kind of just looked by the Mark Chisholm has a place up there. I think this is a huge pile of creosote logs.
yeah. So these creosote logs, they were used to reused to build the foundation of houses.
It's still under a lot of value. There's still some. That just seems to drop.
It was also used for telephone poles all the years.
Tiffany, did you have something else you wanted to add? I'm sorry.
I guess I was just wondering what our action items are moving forward, in terms of this conversation and this meeting.
Yeah.
Poll 4, yes, you put up a question, on your poll. Would you like to see progress reports? Would you like to see achievements to date rather than briefings? We don't want to know, we want to know what progress has been, what achievements have been accomplished, what projects have been planned.
Yeah, so on that topic, and Tiffany, that's a great question. I'll get back to action items in just one moment. But that's something that's been at the forefront of my mind recently is making these reps work best and not waste people's time. So yeah, I think hearing that we want to focus on like the progress that's been made and the achievements. We're a slow beast, so every 4 months or every 3 months, it's not going to be big achievements, but we can still talk about the milestones that we hit. Is that okay? Is there anything else that'd be helpful? I mean, we had talked about going through more of the documents that are out for review right now. If that would be helpful to have a conversation about the materials that are out. That way you can ask the questions and learn about it in this sort of setting rather than sitting on your computer by yourself somewhere. If that's even something that's comfortable for everyone. Is that something that would be of interest?
There's something else I
Yeah.
don't do something else of interest is us taking this information, tracking what's going on, take it somewhere, talk to each other, talking about action items. So part of the briefing to this updates and action items is account that some of this information very clearly up the chart. You know, stop there.
So one of, yeah, regarding that, one of the most effective way of making accomplishments happen is by putting people's names, not just the organization or the position. That way, people are more incentivized to accomplish things. They can't hide behind their job. So maybe this month, as a poll question, would you like to know the names of people who are responsible?
Probably not to always mess with us.
So yeah, y'all can go ahead. Anything a MACNAC is me. So I'm the person. I'm Taylor Borgfeld. I hope you have my phone number and email. If not, I'll give it to you. So
it's on email.
yeah, yeah, you'll get a lot of emails from me. I'm annoyed with myself, so I will continue to emails. I don't have a better way to get a hold of people when I'm not here. But
and also your accomplishments will go down in history, and I think that's a good incentive for people to really push for it.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
It's quite the accomplishment. Yeah.
So Taylor, I know the city's enroll at the very beginning of this and have to say what Natalie said. We love presentations and stuff from the last RAB meetings, but having this open forum where we can actually ask these questions and the difficult ones is important, I feel. I'd also like to invite you to the Unalaska Corporation tomorrow to meet with the rest of our management team. Because we have a board meeting tomorrow evening, we're going to have to report to them what is happening. So if you have time tomorrow, let me know, that'd be great. I'm looking at my calendar now and I'd have to confirm with Natalie, but we have my calendar, I'm open 8 to 10 and then in the afternoon, early afternoon, and Natalie will be joining us with the rest of our management team. So
yeah, we do have like the mid-morning flight, but we could roll up early. So
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it looks like, anything before 10:30 tomorrow morning. So if you could just look at your schedule and let, you know,
We do 8.
8 o'clock. Maybe 8:15, so we can get there and make some coffee for you.
Sure, that would be fantastic. Everyone does better with coffee.
I will let you
Still have time for questions, but I just want to start going through the action items. Is Wendy still online?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
She is helping me make sure I keep track of these things. I'm gonna go through the ones that I recorded, but I know I missed a lot. So, follow up on the XDocs access. I'll send it out to the email list, steps of how you get into it. As a parallel to that, just know that the inventory here is going to be updated. We're looking into the option of getting a CD reader here, like writing one, or maybe even just putting a shortcut on the desktop computers to take you to the XDocs website. I don't know. We're trying to figure out other ways aside from just the final reports, hard copies. The youth seat, we're going to add an option in the operating procedures to have the youth seat elect to stay on for longer than a year. We're going to look at the active board details, see if there's anything else that we can glean from that. And then that was a gym question. Let's see here. For Rosina, the Jacobs monitoring wall in Hudson's Bay. So I'm gonna look into it. I'll get in touch with you. I think that's, my notes are kind of poor. Does anyone else have action items to report?
Yeah, so I have one about creosote. One, it's really 2 questions. One is creosote that was reused as building foundations, and then creosote tiles in general. And creosote poles have typically been topic of discussion. I haven't been involved in too many of those. So it's something that I want to follow up with you.
I guess this is another action item. We look at consolidating the ability we already put engineers to consolidate the 6 like archaeological investigation, environmental assessments. Is that something you guys play out?
Yeah, and I think we'll take that back to our archaeologists and they can probably fill in a little bit of details. In the meantime, we can at least get their viewpoint, they're the experts in the 106 process, and get more of a concrete feedback than what I provided today, which is very basic.
But I guess sort of in that same vein, I don't know whether you're going to be able to see these for environmental sort of stuff, archaeological stuff, or one-to-one, but obviously I think it's probably a larger archaeological window. That's why I hear for most it's pretty most of the year. So, you know, it's like farm in Alaska, which is really take photos and stuff, that's that's required.
Yeah.
So you guys can look at that.
Yes, I think the actions will be able to be taken once the MOA is. And just so you know, the MOA is out with stakeholders or the.
I meant the general like refinement of the Army Corps process.
Okay.
It's really, we'll get that.
Got it.
Because it's like, this isn't just like an issue for this site, right? This is an issue for like all of the sites.
Okay.
Because presumably there's a lot of 106 sites out here that we don't want to see, yes, but other ones there's refine the process. So.
Okay. Both have to make a plug. Comments are due back for the MOA on 31st. We're hoping to finalize that by the end of September. For awareness. Then go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, I just wanted, I guess we probably need a lot more like archaeologists sort of feedback on this, but is there a way for us to maybe short circuit the 106 process? Like the removal of the entire archaeological structure, like if OC just picked it up physically off their property, put it somewhere else. We're not destroying it, you know, it's just moved somewhere else. We then come in and pick up the site, to that hypothetically expedite the whole process. And then I think there's briefly mentions, but we about like 3 students doing phase 1. That was brought up. Like you kind of
Kind of island-wide.
island-wide phase 1.
Thank you. Then, did you have any action items or Wendy?
Hey, Taylor, that's Wendy. I did not hear providing the Navy underwater survey report.
Yep, I was gonna say that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, I put that down. Yes.
How about explanation of what has active one becomes multi-purpose?
Yes, we have that listed. You said that we'll look into it and.
What about the possibility of passing at the time to the able,
In terms of the remediation. So I'm putting an action item of feasibility of passing the remediation work to the landowner generally, but mostly is what we're talking about.
Taylor, this is Grace again. Is SHPO invited to these meetings or can they be invited to these meetings? So especially when we're getting ready to prioritize sites, they could weigh in then maybe?
Yeah, I will ask SHPO to participate in the RAB, right?
Yes.
For awareness. I know that our archaeologists are in very close communication with the SHPO office. They do generally have a pretty good rapport and they're talking about all the upcoming work, but for this awareness particularly, we can definitely make that request and I will put your name down next to it so I can give you an answer next time. Yeah.
Tiffany raised her hand too, or do you want Alice?
Tiffany and then Alice.
Yeah. Yeah, I would just like to add as an action item, addressing the fact that there is no appropriate field screening for these 80-year-old fuels, considering the biofoul of the tundra, which has been demonstrated multiple times, because it's hard to perform this work without any indication of, the extensive excavation, how it's going to be done. And it's a concern for all future work for feds.
Thanks, Tiffany. And that reminded me, this is a blend of technical questions and kind of larger scale conceptual questions. But for transparency, and I think everyone is asking the same questions or wants to know the answers to the questions that are being used by others, would it be helpful if I kind of consolidated these responses and sent them out to the group so y'all could see? Or, okay, because I think they're going to be on different timelines. I'll try to bulk them so I'm not peppering you with constant emails, but I'll try to get you information in a timely fashion that way.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tiffany, did you have others before we pass it to Ellis?
No, she said thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tiffany.
So back to Ellis.
Would raising this to a greater here for engineers to consider a action.
Yeah.
And then I can get this at least to say.
See on that, it wants to really up to, see if it's a private action they want to take. Right.
Maybe one last thing. Sorry, I have a lot of things as well. Oh, yeah. Would it be possible to get a exhaustive list or not exhaustive, but as good as possible list of items that are mistakes in general Alaska area?
I can ask basically I think that's getting into NHL registry territory. But I can talk to our archaeologists and see if there's an easy way to collect that information for maybe the island as a whole or like the MMRP bounds, if that covers a large portion. I'm not sure how easy that is to grab or not, but I will ask.
Yeah. I think that's
Okay, there's Sarah has her hand up, Sarah Byrne.
Can you all,
Could you speak up, please?
can you hear me better now?
No, not very much. No, I really can't hear you, Sarah.
How about now?
Ah, there you go.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize if this question was asked already. Some of the room voices in the room, those of us on the phone cannot hear everyone when they speak. So I just wanted to see if, I don't know if it's appropriate as an action item, but I heard in the room a lot and on the call, a lot of community concerns about long-term health effects and cancer. And I don't know, I'm not a active, I'm a new, relatively new participant in the RAB. So I just didn't know if there, would it be appropriate to bring an action item to the group or follow up in terms of inviting community health agency or a health agency to come and work with the group to make sure that these concerns of the community are being addressed appropriately.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah.
I was gonna ask kind of in relation to that, with my genetic studies of over 80 known cancer markers, not being positive for any genetic reason for the cancer, and not just me, but dozens of my own family members. What can I warn my grandchildren against? Do you guys have any idea specifically what I should tell them? Don't they have family or something?
Yeah.
What can I tell my grandchildren?
So last RAB, we had maybe like a risk 101 talk. You were at the last RAB. Yeah, and I'd say it kind of hit some high notes, but we didn't get into.
There's a lot to consider. There's water, there's plant, there's animal. You might just have to address one category.
I think that's a really good idea. I think trying to tackle it all at once, as we saw, we just kind of, as we want to address concerns, but then it feels kind of rushed and we can't get to all of it because it's just such a big area. There's a lot to talk about. So I think that's a really great idea and maybe something to consider outside the usual routine of the RAB or something to kind of fit it in rather than
Maybe share the slides.
Yeah. I can send those again. They're on the website, but I can send them again. And like that'd be, yeah.
Like when we talked about like all the war, I think this year too, we talked about all the war buildings that trading.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'm probably back in the big tag and all the war buildings. Did not really realize how bad the dust and everything that was in those buildings, you run around sweating, touching your face, and I was like, not dull that I learned about this stuff.
Yeah, when the doctor tells you you have cancer, you don't hear anything. Nothing comes in except that word. And the only thing going out is why? What happened? What did I do? Why is this cancer? Just, it's an unanswerable question that I want you to answer.
Taylor's follow-up, this is Denise again, what Kiana and both Pancho said. Our hope is that these are all cleaned up and the grandchildren won't have to be concerned. I do believe a lot of it had to do with us being in the buildings when they were still fairly new. But we're finding out now that there's still lead paint in some of the debris that we're trying to get cleaned up through NALINT and such. So there's still, I know that she presented in the last RAB and it seemed like there wouldn't be that much contamination coming to us unless we just sampled. But there's still such a large rate of cancer and Parkinson's in our community. And so it had to have come from somewhere. Possibly it was from us playing in these buildings, not knowing there was asbestos and lead paint, but I don't know if having them do the presentation now or just say clean it up as best, to where it should be brought back to how it was before.
Yeah. And I definitely want to say that there's a lot of action items here. There's a lot of pieces of information that I want to give to everyone, but I also don't want to lose sight of the overall goal. So I want to just state that this work of communicating these things is going to be happening at a pace that does not inhibit our progress on the other projects. So I just want you to know I'm not going back and going backwards in the office, digging up this information. We're going to be moving forward. We're still going to be making progress, and we'll answer these questions and get you some answers along the way. But it's probably not going to be immediate because I need to do some digging on things. But I hear what you're saying. And
well, I think a lot of it is our people have a hard time trusting government agencies, and we don't know if what you're presenting to us is accurate with these health concerns. So just as quickly as we can get everything moved off here that was brought in that is making our people sick, it's all better.
Yeah.
Maybe one action item, either the stage out type of policy, restrictions that go
Yes.
into remediation. To on this, maybe. That's some of the sites.
Yeah.
Sites.
Yeah.
I know it's fairly new technology, but.
Yeah, photo remediation is awesome. Not sure, I think we talked about this a little bit at the open house deal, but yeah, there's a lot of new technologies. That one's really great. I guess there's phytoremediology, which is remediation of like trees. There's mushroom, which is remediation. But yeah,
I know it's faster to just dig it up and get it out of here, but some of those sites, they're so vast. That it would probably be impossible.
Well, and on that note, we found out from listening to the Chernovsky updates that sorry, this is Denise for the record, that when the soil is taken out, it's not being replaced, so it could cause erosion or whatever issues, or it takes a long time for our tundra to grow. Sometimes it never grows back. So if there's a way to bring, instead of shipping all of our contaminated soil to Oregon or Washington, maybe the Army Corps should look at putting a facility in each region that it's working at, so the soil can be cleaned up and put back to where it came from.
Didn't they used to burn it?
I did hear that.
Yeah.
They have like 3 burners here.
Yeah.
Under, I want to say what, these Stantec or something like that, those 3 units. But I think they're having some problems at the time. I think they had like 1 running, the breakdown to get 2 running. Then, I mean.
There's an air quality problem with that. Yeah, I think there's some new restrictions. Just regular incinerators. There's rural communities for Alaska.
yeah, you have to get everything up so high to burn off. Literally.
And then didn't they take the soil away then after they burned it?
I'm not sure for those sites.
I think it's safer.
I think when they ship it out to Oregon and Washington, they don't clean it. It's something.
Goes to a landfill.
Means it goes to another foundation, it's moved to somebody else.
I think Oregon has like one of the biggest facilities, I think, waste facilities.
Yeah.
I think they're also. Meeting, but
Those facilities, I mean, feels dirty to be shipping dirty dirt, right? The difference though is like the facility is built with infrastructure to retain it and test it and make sure it's not going anywhere. So
Oh, there's so much, though, this gets Denise again. That's true, but you're transporting it on a barge, and if something was to happen, a container falls off because you hit rough seas, you've just contaminated something else, and it's really expensive. When it'd be nice if we could look at a way to clean it in the region instead.
Also, if the military spent the equivalent of billions of dollars back in 1936 or whatever, 1932, they could spend that much cleaning up their money. Now.
Okay. Any other items that you'd like me to follow up on or have someone follow up on?
Any other additional funding? Potentially fund banding. And then funding.
There's, of course, the EPA ASA, you guys know about, and then there's the EPA brownfields. There's, yeah.
I mean, it's like the military.
We have our NALEP program.
Yeah. Native American lands. Yeah.
I mean, like, security job and whatever construction fund they have for building the military base in a certain country or cleaning up after a war that they participated in. If they could put that equivalent of money into a different country, they put that equivalent of money into this country here that they contaminated.
Well, it's good we continue to meet in these RABs and as a community, because then we're able to, yeah.
Is the military itself, the Department of Defense. I don't know if the other funding that sources that they use.
Yeah.
Maybe that's Unalaska can find them. And the country. So we can kind of feel safe in our own home.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the library closes at 9. I think. So we still have some time, but I don't want to hold the employees here. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for coming. You mentioned that not everyone's in this room, and I do notice that. I know not everyone's on the call, but I do appreciate the time that y'all spent coming here and going through this conversation, share this information. Helps me as the project manager for a MACNAC, hearing about possible photos and things like that for people who are too. Those are like very concrete items, but generally I think we can be more action oriented. Does anyone from the team have anything else that they? Oh, yes, sorry.
Well, the last time, that we lost the funding during the cleanup during the 90s, everything, all the money went away because of the Iraq war. So I took that money in. So who's the evidence of that? I don't know who they are, well, government, but if they go against the wars in Ukraine and into the ocean, and then there's a regional cleanup over there. So is that funding going to go into that again? So we might be on the next. Yeah, we don't know. You know, we should
Find out who they is and if there's something now.
Kathleen also is very happy to hear from everyone. She was very glad she participated to hear everyone's experiences.
Kathleen from she's the project manager for MACNAC. She's the me of DEC, I guess. Yeah. I don't know if she will like that comparison or not, but Kathleen's great, so I like the comparison.
There you go.
Oh, thank you. I like you too.
She said thank you. She likes you too.
All right, thank you all so much. And we'll see some of y'all in the morning.
Taylor, what do you want to do about setting a next meeting date?
Oh.
Do we want to table that? Do you want to? I know that's usually the last thing you do. I'm sorry.
Looking at.
Yep, we're trying to wrap up.
I didn't know if you guys had like.
We're gonna staff chairs, we'll move back. We will not figure out a meeting date.
Okay.
Great. Jim and then Ellis, I'll send out an email. I know everyone wants to do that. We're looking at early November.
Nice meeting you. Yeah.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Left. They had a.
Yeah.
Do you want to, how do you stop recording? Are you recording? or did
It'll
you-
stop when everyone's left. So all you gotta do is leave.
Leave? Okay.